Welcome to the next series of videos on level design, introduction to level design, and doing simple white box, or in this case, gray box block-ins. So blocking in the levels using a measured grid system and modular set of meshes and brushes, stairs, openings for doors and windows, wall chunks, and your L-turn pieces, as well as color coding. Usually it's triggerable red and green for interactive elements, pickups, objects, and so on. So I'm doing a little test run right now. Sorry if I move around a little bit too fast here. But this blockout gem, the original, I made a copy and I just put my initials on there. I recommend you do the same. So as soon as you open this, you want to go File, Save Current Level As, Control Alt S, and you want to go to the Maps folder and just put your initials, save over your own copy of this just so you have the original in its current state and you can go back to this at any point in time. So this is a long tradition of modding and using what's called BSP geometry or subtractive geometry. We used to carve out from a solid space. So in the 3D world space, the world was a solid space and you carved out your levels and your worlds. But in this case, now we have open world, so we automatically have kilometers of open space and sky. And so I organized this into pieces that are pretty, I think, easy to build your own variants of this. So this comes from the blueprint for level design or getting started Unreal Engine content from the Epix game community, and so this was an official tutorial site. But I like these pieces because if you grab some of these blocks, and each one of these blocks are going to show up here in the outliner. Over here on the left hand side you have your modes, so shift 1 through 7 is your selection landscape foliage mode, and so over on this side you're going to have your basic, which does have regular actors, your character, your pawn, you have your lights, you have your cinematic pieces. But right here you have your shape. So here's a cube. So if I drop a cube in there, you'll see that comes in as a static mesh actor. And if I hit spacebar, I should be able to filter through the select, move, rotate, scale pieces. And so if I pop that up a bit here, let me get in a little bit closer. And you can see that this cube does indeed fit within the dimensions on the grid here. And so the cubes, though, that come with this are static meshes. I can, scale these cubes. And if you leave everything on the snap defaults here, so you have the grid snap set to 10, you have the rotational snap set to 10 degrees, and you have the scale snap set to 0.25 or 1/4 up and down the scale size. What you'll notice is if you leave these defaults on, see the scale stays within the grid. That's pretty slick, right? It's a metric system, and then if you rotate this 90 degrees, you'll see it also stays within the grid. So it's a pretty cool system. And these materials, if I look down here underneath, so you have your outliner or world outliner, which should be familiar to you from any other 3D applications. You have the same name, outliner in Maya, except it's usually on the left side. And you have the details panel, which is similar to the attributes and other detail panels you would see in Unity or any other app. But each time I click on a different piece that's an actor in the scene, you'll also notice that it switches in the detail, so it tells you what it is. So these are all SM underscore, or SM is for static mesh geo or geometry that I put there. You see behind it you have an identical row of pieces. So if I click on that, it's going to open up the other brush geo, and you'll see these have the type listed right here of brush. So this is a box brush 2. This is a static mesh PH. I forget what that initials for. I'll come back to me. Wall 2x4. So 2 grid increments by 4 increments. So the box brush here is the same dimensions as the static mesh, but they are 2 different types of geometry. And I'm going to explain to you how that works. So for these, if I go to scale this, you'll see the texture does not stretch. It stays put. And down here in the details panel, you'll see under materials right here, MLLD grid local gray. So local on the material, if I click on this one back here, you see it says base, grid base gray. But if I scale this one, you'll see it stretches the pixels, stretches the geometry. So these are two very different types of materials. One has what's called the local piece. I'll go into this in detail as the semester goes on. But that what that does is it's local. The grid stays put to according to the local coordinates of the world. So no matter what I do with this piece, scaling up or scaling it side to side or scaling it forward to backward. Let me do that again, you can see. And you can do the little bar here to scale in 2 dimensions at once. Same thing with the upper one, do 2 dimensions at once. And if you want to, you can also do all 3. There we go. Go and do all those. But what that'll let you do is keep these grid for measurement. So this way, whatever level you're blocking in gray boxing or white boxing, it's going to be accurate for measuring against your player character. So if I go up here and hit play, here's my little physics capsule that's visible. So that's what's colliding. So if I bump into something, you can see that that capsule is what is keeping it from going through anything. And so if I go over here, that's what you want to maintain your width. So you don't want to have your characters hung up constantly trying to pass through doorways or to come over here and jump through an open window, right? So if I hit the side here, see it blocks me, right? But if I go in the middle there, you could jump up on there, and the window sill, and get in there. And it also works for the stairs. So the stairs, there is a measurement for foot placement going up these stairs. You see the foot's just barely on each one of these steps, and you get a little floaty. At least for these simple ones, you have like accurate, super accurate foot placement is possible, but we're, don't worry about that level of detail when you're just blocking a level. And so hit escape. And then interactive elements, if I click on the barrel here, you'll see that is also a static mesh actor, shape cylinder. And down here you can see it also has a grid. Let's see, EXP, I imagine it's exploding barrel. So, barrels and crates, the old Half-Life or exploding barrel kind of shtick for game development. So this one here is the blue, and this one has a grid for water. So if you wanted to use blue, and then red is grid local color red, grid local color green. If you want to find it down here where it is in the folder structure, you just click on the browse to, this little folder with the magnifying glass, and that will jump to the spot in here. So if I, all these are interactive, so I can scale this up and scale this to the side and scale this over here. If you're new, you may have your content browser might be gone. So if I go Control and Spacebar, you'll see that pulls up, but it goes away. So if I hit Control Spacebar when I first start, you want to go over here and dock to layout, and we can drag that down here to the bottom. If I grab the tab, I like to keep mine right there, like it was prior to the change in the interface. But if you want to just keep it Control Spacebar to open and close this, you can. So the materials folder is going to have these different measuring materials on there. So I'm just going to use the grid local for just about everything. Here's grid cover, exploding barrel, jump X, so that's your height measuring. So if you need to, we're going to be focusing on 3D action adventure platforming-esque level design for the class. Now you can, of course, have more melee or fighting or action adventure. Could mean a lot of things. You could have a lot of, it could be a puzzler, but I think 3D and platforming and action, meaning, action and adventure, we got to go explore around, makes sense for most people. So you can use these colors, and you can go in here and change these. I would, same thing as with the level map, I would just right click on it and duplicate, make a copy and rename it if you want to play around with these and give them different names for your project. So color code, gray or white box your levels out, and color code according to agreed upon interactive dynamics. But for your first exploration of this and just getting comfortable, you can really just keep it simple. You don't have to follow anything. Just play around, get comfortable with the level editor and interface. When I'm moving around, I'm going to do my keys here for you guys. So, okay, so I just put on my key display here. So if I go in here and go W, S, forward, backward. I'm using, it doesn't show my mouse clicks though, so if I'm using the right click button to move around and the left click button to dolly forward and backward. If I go left and right mouse button, I can levitate up and down as well as side to side. So if I hold the right mouse button and then WASD, I can kind of fly around. W, D, A, S to go back. And then I can still do the both mouse buttons to kind of swoop and zoom in and out. So it's the left and right mouse. I'm sorry I'm flying around on video. I know it's nauseating. But it's a great way to navigate around. So if you just got to remember to hold the right mouse button to use the WASD keys as you're doing this. So the player pawn. So we'll go up here to the interactive part, and just to get you guys started with what it is you're making here for the first week of class to get your feet wet. Now, right here we have a network player start, and if I hit F on the keyboard, I guess I don't have to call out all my shortcut keys, but I will for the first bit here, so I'm so used to doing that. We'll go to the network player start. So you have this little Xbox looking joystick or gamepad. In the older versions of Unreal Engine, it looked like a joystick, like what I was used to with the Atari, which is just a joystick and a button. And it has a direction that you're facing. So if I click on that, I can go spacebar, move, rotate, and you can change which direction your character will spawn when the game first starts. You see it's off axis just a little bit. It's all right. If you can get that more precise later. Also up here, I have put new folders together for you. So you have static mesh geo, brush geo. You can go in here and you can move these around. Here's a lighting and rendering. So you have atmospheric fog down here. Any of the things that show up in the outliner, if you turn the eye off and on. So if I go turn off the sphere capture, turn off the source light, turn off the skylight, and then turn off the sphere blueprint, you get pure darkness. And so turning things off and then back on again usually gets you a pretty good idea of what each thing is in the scene. That's really helps a lot, I think. So just turning the skylight on, that is the blue sky just kind of filtering and bouncing that kind of blue skylight from the atmosphere above your head all around. So that's why most shadows are blue. It's the sky blue color bouncing down into the shadow. The light source itself, if I turn that on, that's one directional light. So the directional light is right here. It's like a little sun piece right there. And so if I can change which direction the sun in this case is your main directional light, and you'll see all of the shadows are parallel to each other. So that's the typical, like the infinite sunlight, near infinite sunlight that's shining down upon the scene on the Earth's on the surface of your scene. All the shadows should be parallel to it. So large parallel rays from the sky, that could be the sun or the moon or whatever celestial bodies if you're doing something fantastical. That's that light there. The sphere reflection capture is going to add this little button right here. And let me just go to the move. Should be this one right there. There we go. Sphere. So that actually captures like a 360 camera snapshot to apply reflections on all the surfaces in the scene dynamically. You don't have to worry about that just quite yet. Here's the atmospheric fog. So there's your atmosphere and your ozone, and the ozone in the sky and the oxygen and the air particles and water and whatnot. That gives you depth perception, so you always want to have that in the 3D space so you can actually give you your atmospheric perspective, your perspective cues for depth. And then if I turn this, the sky sphere blueprint, that's an actual blueprint or a set of code that's actually creating these. And if I go up here, you want to turn Control R real time on. I know I had the earlier video where you turned it off right away, but that's going to let this move. The reason why you want that on for this really simple level is this is one of the simplest levels you could get. It's just super lightweight geometries. So if you're the weakest computer that has the minimum spec should run this no problem. But what happens with when we go through these brushes, and I know the term brush is kind of goofy, but the BSP or CSG, the binary space partition, is why they're called brushes. And the binary space partition is how 3D was invented originally, it's as much as I can recall back in the day. And so these are actually pieces that are constructed between these vertex points, and it builds geometry inside of them. And if you have real time turned off, if I go in here and I move a brush, it won't reconstruct the solid geometry inside of it with real time turned off. Well, it just did though. That's strange because it wasn't doing that earlier. So grab this one. You see this brush is made up of two pieces. It's the brush 6 and then brush 7. So that's the inner core piece. Whoops. Brush 7. If I move that over, see this square, there it goes. So now it's not updating, but if I turn on real time, it will actually update. So if I take this out from that brush, this is a subtractive brush, right? And so you can see down here you have brush component down in the details. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail later. So for this one, you could turn real time on if you are playing with the box brushes back here, as opposed to just the static mesh brushes. And the other settings up here that I went through, engine scalability, this one's defaulted to Epic. Again, if your computer is kind of struggling, go all the way down to low, because you don't need to see any of these fancy lights and shadows at all. So there you go. There's high is the cutoff for the dynamic shadows being cast up here in the settings under engine scalability. There's Epic, and there's cinematic. There you go, little soft shadows for cinematic, and it does all the reflections and all the other cool stuff too. So for now, I can go down here and we can go into engine scalability. I could drop this all the way down to medium for this demonstration. I'm going to go down here and hit save all. And this way, when I give this project to you, I'll zip it up. You'll know where stuff is. So for the gray box, or white boxing, it's important to have pieces here. I'll use the static mesh wall piece that have the local grid gray. So that way, here's my floor, and I'm just going to work off this. This should be from the middle. So if I look at the up here in the settings, it should have location XYZ. Now the grid, if I'm showing, the grid should show up. Looks like I turn collision off. There's collisions on, and then navigation. And so the grid should show up. There it is. There's not a, I thought there was a shortcut. Oh, there's the grid. It's just really light. I didn't see it at first. So let's go ahead and play around with that a little bit. So if I click here and I want to duplicate this, what I can do for any of these static mesh pieces is just grab the floor here. So it's arena geometry floor. And hold on one second. So I'm going to grab this first one here, and if I check again, scrolling down here, it does have the local gray on there, and see, make sure this one does too. That one's base gray. Okay, so not that one. So this one's local gray. This one right here, the main floor is a main grid world. So if I grab this one and I start scaling, you see it does. Okay, did have the grid stay on there. Interesting. I didn't think it did. It looks like it does. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right, so let's just take the main floor here, and I'm going to duplicate it. If you want to duplicate, you can go edit up here, and you see copy and paste it, Control D to duplicate, very similar, same thing in Maya. You can also just hold down the Alt key and drag. So if I do that here, hold down Alt and grab an arrow and drag, you see it just replicates a piece, and this should snap right next to the other one, and you'll see up here my grid snaps defaulted on. The grid, rotate, and scale snaps should be defaulted on for you, but you see it snaps very nicely together, and that does what's called watertight. So you want watertight geometry for the most part, and then I can go in here and we can start building out our levels. So we could do like a corridor here for the floor. So I keep the floor as the main thing first. You don't need to worry about wall pieces blocking you just quite yet. You know where you want to be able to walk on top of first, I think. And so I'm going to go to move here, and again I'm going to go Alt. This if I spacebar will filter through the select, move, rotate, scale. You can also go Q to select, W is to move, E is to rotate, R is to scale. So if I go to E to rotate and I hold down Alt and I rotate that, it's going to make a copy as I do the rotate or the move. I believe the scale works similar, so Alt and then scale. And then if I check that, it does make it. Oh, it did not make a copy. So, okay, that's what I was not sure about. So it does it for move, Alt move, and then Alt move again. So Alt drag. You want to be careful having geometry overlap itself when you go through here. So it'll be careful. So I'll drop this down a bit like that, and maybe bring this one down as well, and being careful here to keep things snapping and sealing. You want to avoid little snags like this. You never know when it's going to trip up a bot or it's going to trip up the player. Either way, there we go. So grab that one and then this one, and then I'll bring this one up. And you see I can align it. You see everything's aligning to the grid very nicely. Isn't that cool? And we'll test it out with the jumps on the player here in just a minute. So I just wanted to try this again though. If I go to scale and then hold Alt and scale. Yeah, so okay, it only works with rotate and move. I didn't know that. I thought it did, but no problem. Okay, so there we go. Snap that over as well. And so very quickly, we've made some additions to our level. And I can go in here and go play. And we can go run around here and test out our new platforms. Now, if I fall off, there's nothing to keep me from respawning. I don't think I have that turned on yet, but you can see what the height differences in here. So if I jump down here and then try and jump back up, see it cannot go to 2 of the full grid spaces. So it's just above the player's head in terms of the meters here. So this is the essence of what this is for, really, is to help you decide your core movement space. So you're trying to block in gray box and white box all of the core player movement first, according to the player controls, your player speed, your player jump heights, your crouch, and the player jump distances. So you want to establish all of that first. All of that can be played with and modified. There we go. So if I jump down here now, and you see I could jump back up again. And we'll go look at the player controller here later. But just to get started, I want you to use the main toolkit here and hit escape. And just make sure whatever ones that you use, make sure they have a local grid that can be scaled. So if I grab this piece here, and I hold down Alt and I make a copy of it. And it's good to grab one single gizmo arrowhead. So if I go over here, I'm just using the left mouse button and then the left and right mouse button to go up and down, and the left mouse button by itself to go forward and backward. If I grab the arrow key, hold down Alt and slide, that should slide and snap that over to the side. And then just to test it, make sure that it does indeed stay to the grid. So from this we can make some interesting stuff. So I could go in here and say, all right, let's grab the stair. Let's see if it also has the local material on it or not. I'm not sure. So it did or did not. Can't tell yet. Let's see if it did. Cool. But the mistake I made there, however, is I did not make a... No, see, those are too big. Those are not the right size, so we might have to put the different materials on there. Let's try this one here. But yeah, the mistake was not making a copy of it first. So if I hold down Alt, drag a copy of that over, and you can see these are brushes, right? These are not static mesh actors, so they're going to behave differently. So just be keenly aware of that. So if I grab this one, has the local grid gray, find out where it is in the editor, in the content browser down here. So I went to the magnifying glass. I just clicked on this one that I know has the local gray, and I find it in here. There it is right there, and I grab the stairs. And when I go to the stairs, I go, well, I want to scale these stairs. I don't want them to be that exact. I want them to be longer staircase, but when I scale it, it stretches, right? It's no good. So what we'll do is we grab this and drag and drop this material onto it, and you have to do it to all of the faces though. So if I go in here and drag it to that one, that one, that one. So each of the faces that are separate, we need to drag and drop this particular material. So let's give this a shot. I'm going, and I missed some on purpose, so I'm going to drag that out and then drag this back. And you can see which ones get stretched and which ones did not. So I continue to apply this to all of the faces that I want the grid to stay true to this, to match the rest of the grid for the rest of the world, for the rest of the level that we're building. And I'll go underneath it here as well. So come around to this side and drag it over here as well. There it goes. And up front here, just checking very carefully. Let's give it a little tiny scale up and see what happens. Or scale it a lot and see what happens. And I think that's looking okay. Let's bring it up off the ground a little bit and look underneath. And it's probably a little dark. If you need to see in the dark, you can go here to lit and go unlit, and that will show all of your dimensions, faces, even if it's dark. So yeah, that's stretching still, so put that on the bottom as well. There we go. And I think that's all the sides. It'll become obvious which ones need it and which ones don't as you're developing your level. So for the stairs, though, I wouldn't scale them up because the step height, the step up on height that we talked about a minute ago, is kind of set in the blueprint and in the controls and in the project settings too. There's a bunch of places to play around with that, just like the run speed and the jump heights and jump distances and whatnot. So oh, that's really weird without shadows. I'm going to turn my shadows on. Just my computer can handle it. So if I go in here to the engine scalability, I'm just going to go to high just so I can see some shadows. So it does help to have little shadows when you're building in 3D space. So there we go. So you're welcome to scale the stairs out to be longer steps. I wouldn't bring them in too tight because if the step gets to, just like in the real world, the step gets really narrow like that, without this is the riser right here, and this is the run, right, the tread. So if the tread's not long enough, there's not a hollow space below each tread for the riser, your foot doesn't have any space to really go underneath. So, and you'll see that up here in the scale. So down here in your transforms, you have your local rotation and scale. So this is the transform, this is the rotation, this is the scale. So just like in your 3D applications, it's the same thing. And now I can modify this way, and I can modify this way. You'll see it staying on the grid pretty nice. And go to my move key and just kind of start off. Always start off your corner if you can. Something that's easy to measure. Looks like this one's off a tiny bit. It's a little strange. So if it's off a tiny bit, I can change the grid. So right now it's at 10. I can go to 5, bring it back one more, and then switch it back to 10. So you want to keep that at a higher number. Don't go start micro moving 1 meter at a time. That's just, or is it centimeter? I forget. But that'll just make your life miserable at the early stage. You want to do that to detail, and there you go. So that now snaps in there pretty well. And so what I can do is take this stair piece here. There we go. See how the width is looking okay. And then if I want to duplicate, just hold down Alt, and you see 1, 2, 3 of the big grid pieces. Bring it forward like that, and then bring it up like that. And then I can go over here to this piece, and I can scale that back down. And now I can use the staircase to go up on there. And then if I need to add multiples, hold down Control, and then you can do multiple pieces at a time. And if you want to change where your spawn is happening, click on your player spawn over here, hit the spacebar to get to the move key, and go in the perpendicular setting lets you move on 2 axes at once. So I'm just going to go on the X and Y, and in Unreal Z is up as opposed to Maya where Y is up. So that should start me off right in front of that staircase, and I'm going to hit play. And there we go. And you'll see if you can step up on the steps smoothly. If it's snagging and bouncing and jumping with each step, then you probably scaled the stairs up too much. But that goes right up there. And yeah, the shadows work, the texture works, and I can just keep going here for a little bit. I'll take another cube here so that has the right textures on it. So we'll grab this little cube right there. Base gray, same thing as with the stairs, I believe. So I'm just going to hold down Alt and drag it over and bring that up so that matches that piece right there. Okay, so if I move it, no problem, right? I can move it and I can keep everything aligned smoothly with the grid. Looks like that might be off a tiny bit too. So drop my grid again down from 10 to 5. And make sure these are all aligning just right, and then switch it back to 10. There we go. Yeah, that's working okay. There we go. Okay, so if I scale this, right, it's going to stretch. So that's a no go. As soon as you're ready, as you're going, if you have already save current level as, add your initials to it. and then just hit save all right here, and that should save everything. So as you're building this level out, of course, yeah, you'll need to save. There's autosave. We'll get into that a little bit later. But for this one, I can go to the local gray right here, which is this color. And for this one cube right there, I can maybe just pull this out for a minute and drag this onto one surface, and we'll go ahead and scale this up a bit. There we go. And you see the upper one has the grid correct, the sides don't. So same thing, so drag it on. It's not matched up, drag it on, go around the side here, just left click dragging that over, and drag that over, and then go up. And it's going to be dark, but underneath, it's okay, you can drag that. You know it has to be done. There it goes. You can see the white lines all matching all the way across. And we'll bring it over here and make like a little bridge, right? So we'll say, okay, you have to go up on the stair to the platform. These a bit longer, like you see like municipal and large public areas like parks and big government buildings. A lot of times the stairs will be a bit deeper on the rise versus the run. There you go. But if you want to, if you have an idea of what the stair heights are for these, I think it's about 1.5 of the grid snaps on there. Then we can go over here to this piece and we can measure that out, and there we go. That's about just about there. Now up here in the very top right corner of the viewport, you have this little viewport click that goes between 2D and 3D, the orthographic viewport. So left mouse button or right mouse button pans, left mouse button does a drag select, left and right mouse button zooms in and out, and then middle mouse drag lets you measure, right? So you're kind of getting a general sense of your measurements. No precision is needed, but you want to be close, and you want to leave at least precise enough to have things snap together and be watertight. So let me go back to this. So if you want a full screen, a lot of this, the little teal color, this is how Unreal looked to me for many years. Unreal 2 and Unreal Engine 3, and then they continued Unreal Engine 4 and 5. But a lot of times our level designers, we worked like this originally, and so this way it's really easy to go in here and look at things from the top down. And so your map view, you might want to be looking at this, and as you're doing that, you can hide all the other pieces you don't need. But if you look at it from this perspective, it's really fast to lay out a map. Right, so as long as I know I'm on the same level vertically on the z-axis, I can go in here and say, all right, well, I have my main floor right here. Click on that. There it is. And you can see now which direction we were at before. So if I go from here and I go Alt-Drag, see how fast that is? That's pretty darn fast, right? And then Alt-Drag again. And there's a little seam right there. So again, easy to do, and I missed it there as well. And so what I'll do is I'll make my snap even bigger because I just want to block in. I want to get this white box block in, have some kind of fun, interesting level to run around in. And you want to go fast, and you want it to be large. So the larger your scale, the bigger your grid snaps should be. So let's go from 10 to say 100 and see what it looks like now. And you'll see it's still within the grid snap so far. And let's go even from 100 to say 500. So now you see everything's off a little bit. So 500 was too big. But if I started off that big, maybe it would have worked. So 100 is pretty darn big though, right? So if I grab that, and then we're going to go in here and scale this down like that, and maybe move it on these big grid lines. Everything's still snapping. And hold down Alt and drag again. There we go. Zoom back out. Hold down Alt, drag again. If I want to, I could scale it back in with this way, like that. Bring it back in the main. I'm looking at these main grid lines here, and then scale out this way, right? Because it is a static mesh, you're going to see the triangles within each of the quads, so don't worry about that. That's what it's made for now. We weren't able to use these before. We had to use the BSP or the brushes, not static mesh, because polygons were really expensive. So that's why we had such low poly budgets back in the day. And for like the Tomb Raider levels that Phil will show you, the we're doing some Tomb Raider levels in class, right, for some of the other teams. They use super low polygons, so you definitely could not throw static meshes to walk in. You had to use BSP brushes or carve out volumes, but you can now. So there we go. So if I go back to the 3 viewport mode like that, you can see I've very quickly made an avenue, a little channel to walk through here. And as we're scaling, it's using that local grid coordinate system. So no matter how it's scaled, the UVs don't matter. It's automatically going to project the texture map grid accurately. And so everything's going to snap together really nicely. So if I do that, I can come back over here and let's say we'll grab a door. So I'm going to grab this doorway right here and let's get some wall pieces going. So as I'm doing the wall pieces, I think it's a good idea to early on to you know, so here's a brush, there we go. So all these floor pieces are on the same one, they're all called floor. So floor, floor, over here, floor, and floor, and floor. So that makes it easier to find things and they're already in one folder. So if you're easy, you can kind of judge how that's going to go. When you get ready to detail it a little bit more, you want to do wall pieces. Using my control right click, and I'll just grab a wall piece here, and we'll see that's a 2x4 and that's a 4x4. If I want to name these correctly as I go, if I do an alt drag and bring that over, you'll see there it's 4x6, I think it says, yeah, so 4x6, although it looks like it's 4x4 to me. I don't know. Maybe they had some other piece in there. But anyway, if I grab this and I scale it way out like that, and you see that's more like a 8. So if I might rename, if I click on this one over here, that's a 4x4. If I click on this one right there, oh yeah, it was incrementing the numbers. That's what's happening. So each time you duplicate it, it's going to just add an iterative number. So it's going to go 4, 5, 6, etc. So you could name these as you go. I would go really fast, so have fun with it for right now and just get comfortable blocking out a white box level and getting comfortable with you know, navigating the viewport, adding the right local material, knowing where that is, and placing these pieces and keeping them on the grid. I think that's what's important for now. Don't have to name anything at this phase. These are just quick throwaways. But you see, this is floating off the edge right here. But as long as that corner, oh, it's not floating off the edge, my bad. Let me pull it off the edge a little bit. One, there we go. And then let's drop the increment back down to say 50 and pull it in. There we go, 1, maybe back down to 10. And there we go, click, 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 there we go. So you'll see it's slightly overlapping, but if I got down to 5 again, and had it right there, that's good enough. That seal, these edges, even though they just barely touch, they don't need to overlap. But that's enough to keep the light from leaking in. That's enough to keep the character from slipping through the cracks on here. So I can go over here now and grab a door. Oops, and grab that door right there. I'm going to use Alt and these two and just drag it over like that. And for this piece right here, I can, same thing, Alt, drag, make a copy, go in, whoops, go in a little bit tighter, make sure that there isn't any gaps there, and then grab this door and put it in the middle, like so. And let's see if I scale this a few times. Look at that. It just magically snaps right together for it, like there. It's pretty slick. And we can grab our player start, which I placed way over yonder. And you know, same thing. I haven't seen many of the newer videos use this interface as much, so you might consider you know, going old school with the hit F on the keyboard to center frame, because you don't want to be running, you know, taking seconds to run to where you're at, where you're building. You want to always move your player start to the new spot. But yeah, see, that passes right through, and the lip on the floor is small enough where the hop up on with the capsule physics is pretty minimal, right? Not too much is happening there. Okay, so now I can escape out of that, come over to the side here, grab that wall piece again, and or grab this wall piece over here, You see the pivots on the inside, so if I go to rotate and then hold Alt, it's going to make a copy as I rotate it over like that. And you just don't want them intersecting too much where it's going to show. You'll get what's called Z-fighting. So for right now, whoops, this wall piece here, if I switch to the move tool again, everything's aligning nicely, but if it's inside like that, you'll see a flicker. You see that shimmer every time I move? That's called Z-fighting. That means there's two intersecting geometry pieces. That's this wall here and this wall here are intersecting, and where they intersect, that creates a Z-fight. That's the Z-buffer, the renderer, trying to render each face back and forth. So you see that little flicker right there. And you'll actually see this in AAA published games a lot. You'll see it in, I noticed them in the Dark Souls game and Elden Ring, Skyrim. It just, you're going so fast, it's easy to make this little mistake. And if it's just visual, it's one thing, but if it impacts gameplay, that can be really bad. So, if I intersected like that, but then I had another piece of geometry on top of this, if I did that, then grabbed this piece here and then did an alt drag for that wall piece and brought it on top of it, now you never see it. You don't see the Z-fight, right? So if you're hiding it, the thing is when you're doing that and hiding them and then unhiding them and the art team comes through, or the do art pass one, they start shelling this out, and shelling is when you put like art assets over the top of the geometry block in assets. People might nudge around and not know there's Z-fighting caps being hidden in there, and they might unhide stuff or whatever. So just be aware. Z-fighting can be a big eyesore. For portfolio pieces, you don't want to have that in a piece that's for your finished game for final. And then I can go back over here and grab some window pieces and do the same thing. So I'll just do an alt drag over. And for this one, we'll leave it aligned like the other one. So I'm just going to make it where it just barely touches the edge like that. And then inside the group here, I'm going to group this. So go up here to the little folder and add it into a group. And inside that, I'm going to name this group. I think if I click twice slowly, there we go. We'll call this window repeat wall. Repeat wall. And then I'll maybe 0, 1, something like that. Okay, so it's inside there. So whatever's inside that group, if I alt drag that, it's going to stay inside the group. And then I can grab 2, so that one plus that one, hold alt again, and then drag them over as a whole series. There we go. And then I can grab all 4 of them, and I can push them till they come into contact with that end wall piece. And you can see it's easy to leave a gap. I left a little tiny gap on purpose. Same mentality here. Go back to the top view. If you want to blow it up, you can. And it's really easy to nudge these in the orthographic views and see clearly. So now I can see very clearly where I'm at, which one of those is going to stay. So I'll hold down Alt again, grab that whole series, and just drag it back until the end of that wall unit, oh, there it goes, touches. And that, folks, is how we quickly white box in a level. So do your paper maps, figure out some flat pieces, do some side elevations like we talked about, have some staircases go up. I would say at least have one area that has a second level to it, and then once you get comfortable and we look at the Tomb Raider maps, then you'll definitely want to do some up and down, back and forth, and crisscrossing. So if I hit play on that and we run in here, we can just double check the wall collision works just fine. You can see it does hit my head though, so I'm bumping my head as I jump through. But if I come over here and I look, you see I could see, and I could shoot through those openings, right? Or we could have destructibles or breakables in there. But if I jump through there, I would die. So let's see if that's still working. I don't think we have a kill Z zone. Yeah, so that's broken. It's for the for the respawn. But we'll get into that later. So use this gray box kit to get comfortable, to block in your levels, and this is classic level design theory, and it should be, if you follow the steps in here, you should have a fun time with it and be able to integrate some of the things you made with your paper or digital maps and then we'll talk about placing the interactive elements from your maps, your 2D maps, and how to place those out and make it a fun, interesting level from those pieces. That's it for now.